Hey, fellow artist. I'm super excited to share that I've managed to salvage my broken cigar box leg fiddle prototype, and I'm back on track with the build. I've put together this video to share my findings, and I'd love to get your thoughts about a few things. Before we get started, if you are new to my channel or this project, please watch my leg fiddle journey from the beginning by checking out the cigar box leg fiddle playlist on my channel. This playlist will give you a detailed understanding of what I'm aiming for with my design experiments. It also documents the discoveries I've made and the setbacks I've encountered while building this fiddle. I've included a link to the playlist in the video description box. Please check it out. Watching videos from this playlist is a great way to support my channel, by the way. Okay, so the salvage began with attempting to reattach my headstock. This was a long and frustrating process. I discovered a new DIY approach to applying pressure to my scarf joint while gluing, and this rig applied more pressure than my original method, but my scarf joint kept failing. I was able to break off my headstock with my hands after each curing session, each being 24 hours in length. After 3 or 4 failures, I did more research and learned that the surfaces of my scarf joint were probably saturated with wood glue, and this prevented the glue from seeping into the wood fibers and creating a solid joint. So, I cut and sanded off the supposedly saturated areas of my scarf joint. This shortened my leg fiddle scale length down to 16 inches, which required that I shortened the length of my fingerboard and applied less glue than usual. I learned that using too much wood glue can also keep the glue from binding with the wood fibers. Although I learned a lot about wood gluing during this attempt, it still yielded a failure. I tugged on my headstock and, to my dismay, found that I could still detach it by hand. But rather than detach my headstock and start over again, I opted for a cheat because I desperately wanted to get on with troubleshooting the rest of my design. I decided to reinforce my faulty joint with a particle board screw. I had a pack lying around, so I went with it. The screw ended up being too long for my scarf joint, and its sharp point was visible behind the neck of the instrument. But I was able to sand off the point with my belt sander. Granted, the best solution would have been to redo the neck and headstock entirely, but at this moment, the headstock is holding. So I'm pressing onward. This instrument is a prototype, and I won't be gifting it or selling it. I just needed it to hold so I could complete and test my design, and so I have a template for future build. Okay, so the next step was to determine the correct neck projection, or in my case, fingerboard projection for my instrument, which I failed to do when I initially attached the bridge and fingerboard. Neck projection is the slant of the fingerboard in relation to the neck, top plate, which in my case is the cigar box lid, and the bridge of the instrument. As you saw in my previous video, if the neck projection is off, then one's fiddle strings will lack lift after fingering, and you'll get nothing but buzz from your fiddle. I spoke to Gemini, and it searched the internet for the process of determining the correct fingerboard slant for my instrument. This is the process Gemini suggested. 1. Place the fingerboard on the neck of the instrument. Ensure the nut is the correct distance from the bridge. 2. Lay a ruler or something straight and flat along the top surface of your fingerboard. The ruler should extend up to the bridge and touch it, but not extend over the top of the bridge. 3. Adjust the angle of your fingerboard until the distance between the top plate, my cigar box's lid, and the bottom of the ruler measures 1.06 inches or 27 millimeters. The measurement has to be taken at the point where the ruler and the bridge meet. Now, The 1.06-inch measurement that Gemini gave me applied to violins and didn't take into account my bridge height and fingerboard design, which included my copper frets. So I asked Gemini to calculate the proper measurement at the bridge to determine the right fingerboard projection after I gave it the following information. 1. The height of my bridge, which is 1.625 inches. 2. My intention to add movable frets to my fingerboard using 18-gauge copper wire. With this information, Gemini determined that the measurement at the bridge should be 1.1 inches, which on a measuring tape is approximately 1 inch plus 1/8 of an inch in height. So after some experimentation, I learned that I needed to adjust the height of the wooden spacer that connected my fingerboard to my leg fiddle's neck. After sanding off too much wood from the spacer and then incrementally adjusting height with thin slices of wood, I was able to get the target measurement at the bridge and glue the spacers I needed to the neck and then glued the fingerboard onto the instrument. After 24 hours of curing, I was ready to install a test string onto the instrument and test the height of my copper frets. I was happy to find that I had enough string clearance up and down my fingerboard for my 18-gauge copper frets. In fact, the string height was higher than I wanted, so I decided to experiment with some 12-gauge copper wire I had lying around, and the string height was actually perfect for my 12-gauge wire. This, to me, was a happy accident because I truly wanted real raised frets for this instrument, which would allow for easier vibrato and dramatic dantiba-style bends. You'll hear what these bends, facilitated by my 12-gauge copper wire, sound like in a minute. Anyway, I sloppily shaped 7 movable copper frets for my fingerboard. They're sloppy because my jewelry pliers and hand strength are no match for my 12-gauge copper wire. My frets work, but I'd like to redo them. If you work a lot with thick wire, I want to hear from you. What tools do you use to create 90-degree bends and small loops on thick wire? Please let me know in the comments below. Your feedback will be much appreciated. Moving forward, I attached my movable copper frets using nylon string, as that worked well for my shorty CBG. However, when I remake my frets, I plan to attach them with leather craft string. I have plenty of that material since I make jewelry. I think leather string will hold on to my neck better than nylon and thus hold my frets more securely. I will report back on this once I've tried it. Anyway, I arranged my frets in a natural minor configuration for a quick string height test. Here are the results. Okay, we are fret buzz free. So let's now see if my 12-gauge copper frets work as raised frets, which would allow me to create dantiba style bends. All right, we're in business, folks. Now it's time to install the strings. Originally, I thought I would use a silver wound nylon D string and a high E string from a steel string acoustic guitar set, but found that the sounds from the two strings did not blend well together. I searched my string stash for a high B or G string, but alas, I've used them all in other builds. So I dug up some spare violin strings I had lying around because they were closest to the thickness of my high E string. In pairing up my high E guitar string with a violin string, I learned something about guitar strings. The pressure required to get a stable bowed sound from guitar strings is significantly higher than that on a violin string. So blending the sound from both strings was nearly impossible, and I opted for changing out my guitar E string for another one of my spare violin strings. Unfortunately, the tuning peg for my second fiddle string was placed too high for violin strings. Violin strings are too short for my leg fiddle. I decided to bite the bullet, spend some money, and purchase viola strings for my leg fiddle. Gemini suggested that viola strings made for 16 or 16.5-inch body length violas would work on my leg fiddle. Viola strings are expensive compared to guitar strings and even violin strings. I searched the internet to try and find a good deal on strings for a 16.5-inch viola and found a fantastic offer on eBay. Recently, I became an eBay ambassador, but I won't link to these strings until I've tested them. I'll follow up with a video once I receive the strings in the mail and have a chance to play them on my leg fiddle. Moving forward, I recorded a demo with some reverb added, using the best strings I had available. One violin string paired with a high E steel guitar string. I know many of you have been eager to hear what this leg fiddle sounds like, and I believe this fiddle design has a lot of potential. Let's take a listen. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this progress report. Let me know if you have any insight about the tools that can help me shape 12-gauge copper wire. I really want to redo my frets and make them look and perform better. I await your comments with much anticipation. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Chaito.